I'm Mellissae Lucia. I'm the creator of the Oracle of Initiation book and deck. And in these times that we're in, with the virus and the breakdown of the culture as we've known it, I felt like we needed to talk more about initiation and about a more mythical perspective on what's happening, a more archetypal perspective, and to look at this process as a lens, through the lens of an invitation. And the reality is, initiation is an invitation. In our current culture, our collective initiations, many of them have fallen by the wayside. They're not as cohesive as they have been at other times. And I think it's important for us to recognize that there's this hardwired human need for ritual, for ceremony, for reverence, that this is just something that we came in with. Recognizing it or not, embracing it or not, that's a whole nother matter. And I feel like in a way, James Hillman, the archetypal psychologist, said, shopping has become our collective ritual. And that's really true. And that's something that's really gotten us off track. There was this fabulous meme that says, buy more shit or we're all fucked. That pretty much sums up where we've gotten. And so I wanted to share, the Oracle of Initiation was created during a 7-year quest after my husband had died. And I traveled and moved from the Pacific Northwest, where I was 6th generation, and ended up living in the desert Southwest. To say that that was moving to Mars is maybe even an understatement. So the journey of that process was created through these 2 different bodies of work called the earthenbody series photography and the painted body series. And so those became, there were 70,000 images. Yes, I said 70,000. 70,000 images in those 2 series combined. And it became the Oracle of Initiation deck. And so I wanted to go through the initiation realm in the deck. The deck has 8 different realms. There's innocence, then you move into exploration, then you get tested with initiation. You come out the other side with discernment, figuring out what you came through the fires with to use in a more sophisticated way. After discernment comes alliance, which is recognizing that you have all sorts of support that you didn't realize, both humans and spirits. And then the balance realm comes, where you find what you specifically, I may need to do a video on that, what you specifically need to keep your ship balanced and the ballast so that you can keep moving through these waters. Then the 7th of the 8th realm is the offering, which is similar to, we can use the analogy of when Jesus went into the desert for 40 days, was initiated, had all of these mystical experiences, and then comes back out ready to offer his gifts to the collective. So that's what the offering is. And then the final realm is unity, which is recognizing that we are divinity incarnated into bodies, that there is not that separation between the worlds, that we do such a good job of having the illusion of separation. That will come up in the cards, that illusion of separation. So as I said, I'm going to go through the initiation realm. This is the first set of the cards that were printed, the Oracle cards. They'll be printed big again this fall. People keep asking me. Right now they're tarot size, the smaller size is available, but these show up better on video. And they're gorgeous. So I want to start this with a quote to really set the container. There were really 3 main concepts that I want to bring through to set the structure of where I feel that we're looking at initiation at this time, give us some context with this. So this is a quote from Malidome Patrice Some from the West African Dagara tribe. And this was in Orion magazine, this fabulous article in 1998 called "To Help Us Be Human. How much do we need that?" So this is our yearning for the lost beauty. It's really pivotal at this time in looking at what we're really searching for. This beauty, this drive to consume, is really a drive that we assert for the lost beauty. Beauty is so complete that it is outside of the reach of human language. You just have to be in it. This is what makes this particular lifetime worthwhile, the pursuit of it and the willingness to die searching or serving it. The willingness to die searching or serving it. To me, the lost beauty is the original instructions, as she says in the book Braiding Sweetgrass. It's the recognition that we are part of a cycle, part of a whole, part of a web of connection. And that connection is to the earth, it's to the animals, it's to the unseen ones, the healthy, healed ancestors, and to each other and to ourselves, to this recognition, like this. To me, the lost beauty, the beauty is really recognizing who you are, embracing who you are, and then sharing and connecting and being in relationship through that sense of authenticity, that sense of real connection and beauty. And my friend Jabu says about oracle decks, but I think of this in general. She wants it to read true. Like what really resonates within you that you know. It's allergy time here in Santa Fe, so I sound a little sniffy. Roll with it. Yes, this reads true piece about what's, we're allergic to the counterfeit. Good TI lyric. We're going to be allergic to the counterfeit, and that's really where we're at, is what's really authentic, what's really sustainable. So that's one of the pieces that I think is really important. And the other two that are setting the container for this, along with the lost beauty, is that the greatest power that we have at this time is creativity, is our ability to trust our instincts, to be innovative, to pivot, to love what we're doing. It doesn't help anything to feed the depression, to feed the fear, to feed the anxiety. You need to meet it if you're in that. But that's not what's going to actually transform things. I mean, there's that Einstein quote about we can't fix the things that we've created with the same mind or perspective that created them. We have to go to a new place. And so the new place is this really authentic passion and play and joy and presence that will bring forth these new things. Because anything that's innovative, I'm writing a book about wasting time, revolutionary new rhythms for the creatives. And there's one of the concepts in it is the myth of the objective. And the myth of the objective is we have this cultural idea, this scientific empiricism. You can see it, you can measure it, and we're going to decide where we're going to go. Has anything really transformative in your life ever been something that, like, I'm absolutely going to do this and it's going to happen and I know what it's going to look like? Doesn't work like that at all. That's one of the false narratives we have, is I'm going to decide what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it happen. And also when you get there, here's the other thing. When you get there, it may not be what you actually really thought it was going to be or really wanted. Be careful what you wish for. You may get it. Not try to be super negative, but sometimes what we think we want and what best serves us is a whole different deal. So creativity being our greatest power. And then a really central concept to the Oracle book. Can you see? I'm not behind the camera, so I'm hoping you can see that. It's actually, that's here too. So is the rainbows in the dark. So the rainbows in the dark is part of this journey, part of the story of this deck, of this 7-year quest after my husband had died, and I lived in the Pacific Northwest, and my whole life blew up and everything, my marriage, I didn't have children yet. I really wanted children then. And the universe said, oh no, you're headed somewhere else. We got a different plan for you, girlfriend. And I ended up falling in love with the desert Southwest. I'm a frog. If you've ever been to the Pacific Northwest, you ever been to Seattle, it's wet. And guess where I am now? I'm in the high desert, where if you see water, it's this unbelievable blessing because it's so rare. And so this piece about the rainbows in the dark it's similar to Plato's analogy of the cave, which is, and the analogy of the cave is more of the illusions and the delusions that we need to leave. But the rainbows in the dark are about going into your interior and finding the things that are really authentic but hidden about you. And so many people, when they hear the shadow, they think, oh my God, there's all these terrible things. And that's the template of shame that we've been given in this culture. The reality is actually rainbows in the dark, more often than not, is actually your brilliance, is this unique combination, this mixtape of magic that is you. And if you don't go in and also look at those pieces that want to be healed, those inherited tribal trances that you've gotten, your lineage codes from your family, the wounds from your family that you've inherited, but it's also where your greatest gifts and power hide. So you got to go down in there to go find those magic rainbows, to have that magical dialogue. And so that's just one of the other main pieces with this. The Oracle of Initiation is rainbows in the dark, and your greatest gifts hiding within your perceived greatest challenges. And that's what initiation is. Initiation is this invitation into integrating more of who you are, getting the fuck out of the way, healing pieces of yourself that you might not even know need healing. It's a journey. Trust the journey, trust the journey, trust the journey. So I want to read another quote at the beginning of going into the set of 7 cards in the initiation realm. And this is from the book Crossroads, The Quest for Contemporary Rites of Passage. Oh my God, do we need more contemporary rites of passage? So we're at a crossroads in our culture. What are we going to do with what's happening now with this universal timeout? What new myths are we going to create to lead us into more honorable, just, equitable, connected times? A crossroads is a place of change and exchange, of lost and found, of discovery and revelation. It is a place for invention and for sacrifice. Crossroads are also for burials, for life can only grow when an old or completed phase has been released and left behind. The word crossroads has intersections within, as if a cross stands where the roads intersect. There is often a cross to bear at a crossroads, because possibilities and potentials, endings and beginnings, become activated at the crossroads. Deities, spirits, and ancestors congregate there. So this is about alliances. This is about support. This is about recognizing that there's this whole corporation that you have of guides and guardians and healthy, healed ancestors, whatever you want to call them, angels, animal spirits. There's a lot of words for ascended masters, a lot of words that we can use, but my experience, direct experience over the last 30 years of my life is there is this whole tribe of guardians and guides who are there specifically for you to help you through and to guide you, but you have to be able to know how to listen and receive and to know what messages are really authentic. And so the Oracle of Initiation was created with that in mind, to help guide you and to have these cross-cultural guardians who want to support your wisdom and to support your most authentic potentials of who you are. I think that there's that phrase about raising your vibration, and I have a friend, Eric, who's up in the Pacific Northwest, who does the sacred bowls, amazing person. And Eric was talking about how he'd heard from one of his teachers about this idea that there's hierarchy with that. There's this idea of better and worse. And his teacher had said, it's more about becoming more authentic to your vibration, to who you are. And I love that. I think that's really important. It's one of the new age things about high vibe people, low vibe people. I think it's just more authentically who you really are, beyond the wounds, having integrated the wounds. So we're going to go through the 8 cards in the initiation realm. So the first card, this is one of the gateway cards. So in the Oracle deck, it has some nod to the structure of the classic tarot, So that may help you understand that, because I know for some people they say, I don't know how to do oracle decks. Well, and also you've got a 400-page guidebook. That's going to help you a little bit. But so this image, the images on the gateway cards, they're called the gateway cards. These are like the major arcana in the tarot. That means this is a core archetypal issue for you in this lifetime. And this shape, it's called a lavo. It's inspired by the Sami, the Northern European Scandinavians, one of the last places that shamanic traditions survived. You know, they call it different things, and Noati and Savo is traveling between the worlds, and Scythe, the Volvas did those things. But this is, you know, indigenously, we all had drums, we all were connected to the elements, we all had spirits, and, you know, we all, if we were hunter-gatherer travelers, we all had some sort of a structure to live in. This would have reindeer skin on it that could travel, you know, like the teepees here in North America. And so this is this humble abode that is the paradox. We could have a whole video about spiritual paradox, but paradox of this humble abode being the gateway to transcendence, being the gateway to being embodied while divine at the same time. And so there's 4 different, if you offer something, you receive something, then there's the heart and the house. So those also correspond to the suits in the tarot. So if you, in the initiation realm, which the keyword is surrender, if you offer control, you receive freedom. So what's true freedom? I feel like that's part of the invitation that we have during this time out with the virus, is what do you truly value? Not what you've inherited, not these shadow loyalties to buying more shit or we're all fucked, but to what you really need and want, what feeds you, and to find the courage to do the things that you've been too afraid to do. You know, the universe has said, well, okay, we're going to take some of your income away so that you can find what you maybe really want to do. Now, I'm not discounting that this is terrifying. I'm not discounting that there are mortgage payments, that there are children to feed. I'm not discounting this at all. And we're all in this together. So see this as an invitation to finding some courage to do some things you really wanted to do. And it's the broken heart, and it's a house of transformation. So this is the crossroads. This is a pivoting where you move into, where you surrender, where you recognize Byron Katie, you know, I think of the Serenity Prayer always, but also Byron Katie, yours, mine, and God's business. And I think, to me, God's business right now could also be the collective. What do we do for the best for the collective? But you have to recognize what's yours to do and not do, what you can control and not control, and what you can't, and not make yourself crazy trying to control what you can't. So we're going to go through, now these are the painted body images. As I said, there's 70,000 images in both of the series that led up to this. And there's no photoshopping. These were taken down in graffiti tunnels and on the land here in New Mexico, land of enchantment. So in this realm of initiation, there are these 7 concepts now that we're going to arc through that are going to help us understand how to meet initiation, how to move through it. So the first one, when you come, you've left the exploration phase, the headed out on the heroine's journey, and you're the fool, you're jumping off the cliff. But now you have confusion. Confusion hits you. So that's going to be the first thing that hits you. And I also had connected these. There were the stages of grief, Kubler-Ross. I found 5, I found 7, I found 12. You know, it's an evolving wisdom. But I connected some of those phases of the stages of grief, because I also think we're in grief about the illusion that things were working. And many people know things were not working. You know, the colonialist mindset that we have and the massive injustices. But I think there's also this yearning for this idea that we could go back to where we were. We can't, and it wasn't working. So shock is a stage of grief that I see with this. And so the guardian, the cross-cultural guardian for this is Oya, Queen Oya. She's one of the Yoruban African Orishas, and she is a warrior goddess, and she has a skirt of many colors that she swirls to blow away illusions. It's like Kali Ma in the Eastern traditions. She's also the guardian of the ancestors in the cemeteries with Alagua Eshu, and the matron of the marketplace. So this is interesting that she's both connected to the ancestors and protecting the cemeteries, and then also is about commerce. So we need new forms of commerce. And so in her messages, in her channeling, she's talking about how do you find the center of the storm, and how do you blow away the false ideas of who you were. So that's Queen Oya. Big love to you. The next piece then is, once we're in that confusion, we may want to retreat. There may be this piece about terror, about how we want to put our heads in the sand. And so the denial would be the stage of grief for this. And this is, a few of the cards have archetypes instead of an ancient cross-cultural guardian. So this archetype is the Hermit, is the retreating one. And in the messages for this card, it talks about how there's great wisdom if you can be quiet and go within, if you can listen and not have the distractions. So Jenny Odell did this incredible book called How to Do Nothing. You should read it. And she talks about the attention economy, about how, where are we giving our attention? And a lot of the things on the internet and social media and movies and things are designed to sell things, and also designed to tear us down so that we buy more shit so we're not fucked. And so this piece about who's getting your attention? Maybe you need less screen time. Seriously. Are you listening to the subtle rhythms that are around you that aren't somebody else feeding you something? What does your voice want to bring forth from what it hears authentically? So that's retreat. 20, revealing. This deck belongs to Odin. This is Odin. This is the Norse father god Odin, who is a master of sacrifice and visionary transformation. He chose to hang for 9 days upside down like the hanged man in Yggdrasil, the world tree, and hanging up, I think he saw it in the well. Is it the Mimir, the well? But he hung upside down, poked one of his eyes out. We're not suggesting you do this, but he did this for all of us. Hanging upside down, and he looked and he saw this shape that had all of the runes. So runes are one of the indigenous Scandinavian divination systems. And so this revealing, so you can see these rainbows in the dark. That's the graffiti behind Odin. And the connection to the stage of anger, to the stage of grief, I feel is anger with this, of people are asking right now, how much are we having to give up? How much are we having to sacrifice? Now I'm going to be tough love for a minute. If y'all are in North America or the Western industrialized worlds, almost all of us have a level of comfort and of wealth and affluence that's astonishing. That's astonishing. Do you know how much stuff we have? And access to food and safe water. There's a lot of places on the planet that don't have this, or have very different relationship to resources. And so this piece about the anger and Odin is really inviting you into the mystery and the magic, inviting you into seeing things from a more mythical, archetypal perspective, and finding the magic and the power that's within you. Like what's being revealed in these times. Thank you, Odin. Okay, 21, release. This is Pele. So this is the Hawaiian volcano goddess. And for Pele, I feel like the stage of grief is bargaining, is, well, how much are we going to have to release? If, you know, we have this Christian culture that has this very, this mythology about reward and punishment. Well, clearly the world doesn't work like that, particularly economically. There are people who are so off track, who have a lot of resources, and there are people who are living in such beauty and integrity, and they're working 3 jobs. So there's no correlation between this, you know, when hard stuff happens to good people, all of those sort of things. there's this piece about all of us, once again, back to the being invited. Being invited into becoming a more authentic version of yourself, releasing things that you inherited that no longer serve you, and becoming a phoenix out of the ashes. That's what we're all being invited into. So that piece about the bargaining is, I feel like that's where, when we come out of the shock and the confusion and the denial and our head in the sand, then it's like, okay, can I bargain? I don't think these are bargaining times. I think that these are keeping it real and showing up and finding those really original instructions, the compassion, the grace, the love, the connection to people in ways that we've been separating and separated. I mean, part of this is the colonialism, the patriarchy. But there just needs to be a critical mass of us to do a tipping point to change things. We don't need everybody. We just need a certain number of us to have a vibration that will change things. I know that for sure. So here's 22, isolation. So this is a Ganju. There's there's a lot of African Orishas in this realm for some reason. A Ganju is the guardian, so it's interesting because we've got the volcano ones, guardian of volcanoes, but also the keeper of what's underneath the mountains and the earth, the wealth and the richness of the crystals and the minerals. And so a Ganju is the one who's willing to take you through the deep, wild, harsh places, the tundras and the wild deserts. And a Ganju is the one who will help you move through that within yourself. And so I would say that this is the depression in some ways. This is the overwhelm. This is the I don't know how I'm going to make it through. I'm terrified. I can't have my house go into foreclosure. How do I keep my kids safe? This is that piece. And in the channeling for a Ganju, there's also, and this card in general, there's this piece about that it's like falling through the void to really touch into this illusion and of isolation. And our culture has fed it so much that it has a lot of power. I mean, there's a lot of truth to it because we fed it and we fed it and we fed it. But it really, some of it comes down. I feel like we're really hitting all of our core fears. And one of the fears that hardly anybody talks about or touches into is this being left on the tundra by the tribe, like this basic existential, I'm going to be, I think the bag lady syndrome is another westernized version of being completely decimated, isolated, left alone, crushed. And so there's this piece about somewhere, I think in our collective gene pool, there still is this fear that somehow we're going to be totally left alone, totally abandoned. It's abandonment. So that's something that we, in recognizing and going through the phases of initiation, you got to recognize some of these inherited things that are in our gene cells that are driving us, these fears. Like, if you go out, okay, this happens and I've lost my job, and okay, and this, but I have this savings, but then that savings is gone. You go do. But beyond, underneath all of that, I think is this fear of complete obliteration, abandonment, and it's terrifying. And I don't think you need to go hang out there or totally swim in it, but I want you to recognize that sometimes this anxiety, sometimes it's some really old stuff. It's really terrifying. And I think we're just to be with it on some level. And then move into new patterns. New patterns is what will change that. Okay, sacrifice, Hecate. So, 23 sacrifice. So, Hecate, this to me there was a testing in one of those 5, 7, 12 stages of grief that I looked at on the internet. There was a testing one. So she's the Greco-Roman guardian of the underworld. She's got torches, she's got hounds, and she doesn't suffer fools lightly. Pele said the same thing in the channelings in the Oracle book. Like, don't come to me all out of sorts. you need to have some center to come to me so you can hear me. I'm not the one to come to when you're spinning out. And she says the same thing. And so there's this piece about the testing, about resilience and stamina of the soul, as Carolyn Mace says, and finding that power, that authentic power that's really within you. And so that's some of the going to the underworld. And I feel like we're all collectively going to the underworld. We're looking at our issues of power and powerlessness, and seeing the way that we're connected, and in ways that we can't deny. And so this piece about sacrifice, you know what sacrifice means: to make something sacred, to make something holy. And historically, people have chosen to sacrifice. It's been a gift. And I think we've lost that. I think sacrifice just sounds shitty now. It's like, oh, I got to give a whole bunch of stuff up, and it sounds awful. Well, here's the thing. I was invited, it's 19 years ago, I was invited into a different life by my husband dying. And I had a bougie life in Seattle. I felt horrible because Seattle's not my place, and I was an empath that had not been trained. I was starting to be trained, but nobody had taught me about not taking on other people's things. So I was this weather vane of hell, was just constantly this sponge taking on everybody's unresolved shit. And I felt horrible. I had depression and anxiety in Seattle. It was awful. And I was invited through the massive not my choice, but the massive sacrifice of that life, of the illusion of the security, the illusion of the money, all of those sorts of things. I was invited into a whole nother life, like Inanna choosing to go to the underworld. And at each stage that she goes down, she lets go of one of her pieces of earthly power and earthly resources, and comes nude into the underworld to merge with Erish Kegel, her sister of the underworld. So she was merging her shadows and her light. And so there's this piece about sacrifice where, for me, I had to be kicked out of the castle because my own fears about security and control and resources were so much. I wouldn't have chosen to do that, at least not at that age, in my late 20s. But what it's given me ultimately, when I met it, when I went on that 7-year quest, when I did the 70,000 images, when I made the deck, when I followed my voices, when I followed my creativity, I became the person I always wanted to be. How many of you can say that? Now, here's the thing. This isn't easy. I don't suggest you quit your day job. Doing this path, it's a very different path. Your level of trust in how resources are going to come, where the money's going to come from, where the rent's going to be paid, that is not a given. And if you don't have the stamina to deal with that, please don't quit your day job. But if you are one of those people who's insane and is the fool and needs to jump off the cliff over and over again, then go do it, because you're doing it for all of us. I did it for all of us. I did this for all of us. You don't have to go take 70,000 images on the land, because you've got the oracle. It was for all of us. So this piece about sacrifice, though, there was a massive offering in my life that was given that gave me the life that I really wanted. And I honor Christopher, my husband, for being part of this myth, this new myth, this fate, this destiny. And so we all have an opportunity now to do our own versions of what these sacred sacrifices are. What's really important to you? What are you really going to focus on? What are you going to let go of worrying about or valuing that didn't matter? Who are you going to let go of their opinions mattering? Didn't sound right. How are you going to let go of your fears of being judged or people thinking you're strange or odd? You know, if you're going to follow a really intense mystical path, you got to let go of what other people think, because you're going to be given directives to do things that don't make sense on the earth plane. You are working with a higher authority, a more, from the earth authority. You're working from a different authority than the security survival. I'm going to read a quote at the very end from Plotkin, from Bill Plotkin, about what you're going for if you're doing this. So think about sacred sacrifice. So the final card, the final painted body card in the initiation realm is Obatala. And Obatala, this card, faith. Obatala is another African Orisha. It's a father Orisha, like the great patriarch. Has caminos, has pathways of both male and female. I guess I tend to think of Obi as being male. But someone who is about justice and about equanimity and honor, married to Yamaya. And so Obi in this is calling you to step into a leader in whatever that looks like for you. Doesn't mean you're going to be on stage, doesn't mean you're going to write a book. You know, it doesn't have those externalized ideas. This could be in your backyard. This could be with the kids on your block. This could be in your, at your church. But what sort of leadership and authenticity and true voice are you bringing through for your collective? And so this one, the final stage of grief, is about meaning. What new myths are we going to create to help us make it through this? What do we really value? What's really important? I've said this about 6 times. I don't think we need to buy more shit. We don't. Maybe we need to make some stuff. Maybe we need some things that last longer than what you got at the dollar store. Or go to the thrift store and repurpose things. All hail the thrift store. We have so much stuff in this culture. We really don't need more stuff. So Obatala is this call to this regalness. So doing a little wrap up again, the pieces that we're in a time of an invitation. We're being invited to creating new patterns, new myths, new perspectives. Creativity is our greatest power. That innovation, the trusting in your voices, your animal body instincts, trusting those. I was supposed to go to Cuba a couple of weeks ago, and about 2 weeks before it, I saw the handwriting on the wall, and I've wanted to go to Cuba for 30 years. You have no idea how much Cuba has called me for decades. And things had not really blown up here in the States or beyond, really. China, Milan hadn't started yet, but I got the sense, you're not going. And it was right. Today I just got an email. I wouldn't have gotten out of Cuba. The Interjet flight wouldn't have left. So creativity and trusting your instincts, this yearning for the lost beauty, this yearning for what really authentically feeds us, real ritual and reverence in the way, we're not talking religion here, we're talking what you really need. And the rainbows in the dark, this exploring and not knowing. Not knowing is I could do 14 videos on that, because that's an important piece. So we need to tap into the mystery channel and not know. So finishing up with this Bill Plotkin quote, and Bill Plotkin, who is both an academic and an on-the-ground embodied animal body, earthen body, teaches people about rites of passage. He's an amazing crossroads of wisdom. And he also, in his book, Nature and the Human Soul, if we all read this and wove through this and embodied this, we could change the world. But he has an 8 stages of human development, the same stages as in the Oracle book. My deck, we were writing these at the same time. So the collective unconscious brings things through with many messengers. But his belief in this stage of evolution from innocence to mastery is that we're stuck in the patho-adolescent stage. So the patho-adolescent stage is the stage of those self-absorbed impulses, not having visionary long sight. It's also, I believe, part of it is the patriarchal. So I'm not saying specific men, I'm saying the imbalanced masculine, of greed and aggression and entitlement. So he talks about how we're stuck in this patho-adolescent society. So this is a quote, this is in my Oracle book. All of these quotes were in my Oracle book, but this is from his book, Nature and the Human Soul, Bill Plotkin. So this is what we're going for, friends. He says but I'm going to say we're. We're attempting to bring mystery, wildness, deep imagination, and praise of the sacred, the natural, to a society obsessed with security, comfort, material wealth, and the ownership of things. I'm going to read this again. We're attempting to bring mystery, wildness, deep imagination, and praise of the sacred, the natural, to a society obsessed with security, comfort, material wealth, and the ownership of things. May we create new patterns and new myths together, my friends. Mellissae Lucia in the Oracle of Initiation.